I'm looking forward to our next presentation. It's a few of my favorite people we've had at our conference before. It's a panel discussion featuring three experts in sous vide equipment and adaptation. They introduce themselves in the video, so making my job easy for me. So please help me welcome Alexis DePietro, Chef Buddy Gillespie, and Neal Pearlman.
Well, thank you all so much for being with us today. I am here with Buddy Gillespie, the Director of Culinary for JBH Advisory Group, as well as Neal Pearlman, the Director of Sales for USA at Samiak. I am Alexis DePietro, the Vice President of Operations for Sous Vide Kitchen, a virtual food hall. I'm really excited to be with you today to discuss the opportunities to expand the use of sous vide cooking in your catering operation. As some of you may know through other summits and other discussions that we've been a part of, it's a topic that's really near and dear to my heart that we have really been working and evolving with over many, many years. So I think that we have the perfect experts here today to chat and share a little bit of their exciting insight and information. So I guess just to begin, Neal, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of an introduction on your professional background and really how you got involved with the position that you're in now and your real love for sous vide cooking and the processes involved.
Well, I've been involved with SAMIC now for 10 years. That's what happens when you're a Spanish major in college. You go to work for a Spanish company, I guess 30 years after you start. And we have been involved with sous vide and sous vide cooking since I started here. And about 6 years ago, our organization took a real 90-degree hard turn to jumping in with both feet to be all in with sous vide and sort of taking it to the next level, meaning tracking and being able to really understand what's going on inside the bag, inside the water throughout the time. So it created a new passion for me to sort of see how I can cook, how I can be better at what I do by helping different organizations across the country understand the value of sous vide cooking.
Amazing. Thank you. And Buddy, can you share a little bit about your background with the group?
Yeah, I am currently with JBH Advisory Group as a director of culinary. But prior to that, spent many years, being a chef in Manhattan with nationally known concepts, Houston's, Hillstones, Dave & Buster's, Chopped Creative Salads, all within Manhattan. I spent many years with those concepts, building new locations, training and opening them, and just really had a long background of training kitchen employees how to prepare, store, and serve food. That brought me to being able to be a consultant with JBH Advisory Group now as our current founder was one of my trainees many years ago, and we had always had a passion for food and how to prepare it, and he seemed to have really liked me, and we stayed in touch. And so when JBH Advisory Group started, he gave me a call, and that was about 12 years ago, and we've been on this glorious ride ever since. As far as sous vide, it was during those years with JBH Advisory, one of our main purposes is helping people with their existing businesses, whether it's something new from the ground up, or fixing or repairing something that might be in crisis, or developing systems that may be in need for what they're doing next. And a client of ours had come to us and wanted to start a new concept. And, with all our years of most of us doing this, I went back to all the tricks we'd always known, marinating this, baking that, sauteing that. And we had finished the business plan for this client, and we had this great concept. In that time, kind of new and evolving. It was like a Chipotle type line for a fast casual Vietnamese restaurant. And we wanted to start in DC. And of course, we wanted to be in a nice centered business building at the base floor. So when we get all that traffic coming from upstairs, and again, be street level so everyone could see us. But landlords were very reluctant to offer us and let us go into these spaces wanting to install a type 1 hood. And that type 1 hood meaning, the exhaust fan that we all use when it's over a range or an oven or a fryer. There was just a lot of no's. And I had just recently read Thomas Keller's Under Pressure, which is kind of a famous book now, but out of the blue, I just said, hey, let's make a hoodless kitchen. And then my boss, including the people, the landlords, were like, can you do that? I'm like, oh, sure. Even though I had no idea what that entailed at the time. Now being kind of an expert through that trials and tribulations of that, I became very fascinated with the concept of being able to make a kitchen not only the reducing the cost, but the liability, the ease of use, ease of training, and of course, as Neal pointed out, the safety, the consistency of that, and the product output is unbelievable. It's unmatched. You have the beauty of the crock pot consistency that we all knew as kids, but you also have the visual, or let's even say the Instagram ability to make this beautiful interior, mid-rear end to end, and along with that texture. So you have the best of both worlds, which you really never could achieve before with really any other cooking method. And we became engrossed in it for the nutritional value, the consistency, the ease of use, and of course, the ease of installation. And here we are today as major consultants of that, because you can position yourself into any space that has an electrical outlet. And that's why we use it ourselves in our own businesses, and we promote it for solutions for our clients around the country.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I think that last sentence, you can use it anywhere that there's an electrical outlet, right? And I think that that's one of those topics that, speaks so well into the topic we're talking about today, which is catering, right? And I think that there are a lot of misconceptions, and there's a lot of thoughts about the use of sous vide cooking and utilizing sous vide cooking for high-end restaurants or very unique dishes. But there really is an opportunity to use it in a larger appeal, in a larger setting. And it really can be done very, very simply if you kind of strip away, right? And so I guess specifically for catering operations, when I think about catering, I think about a few different areas specifically, right? There's individually plated caterings, like for banquets and for weddings. There's individually packaged for delivery, or like corporate style lunch, Midtown Manhattan lunch delivery. You have family style buffets for both, in a dining atmosphere as well as for delivery. There's offsite events. And then I think food trucks really fall in that category as well. Because I think they're really so in line with offsite events. So Buddy, I guess the first question's for you. How do you think that the landscape has changed specifically for restaurants with high catering sales and caterers in today's environment compared to the last, few years?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's interesting you brought that up, because I think sous vide cooking technology was almost indirectly designed for catering and or food trucks. And to your question, the demand of, I don't want to use the word perfection, but people getting what they want when they want it. And as we all know, we are, as manufacturers of meals for people, are under a microscope more so than ever. And what sous vide has done for us is enable us to cook foods in a smaller space with the security of minimizing cross-contamination. And it doesn't even have to be contamination. If we want to make sure the veggies don't touch the meat, or the gluten-containing product doesn't touch one that shouldn't, that has become, it was always important, but the hypersensitivity and the actual proof of concept is there now. And sous vide, just on its own, the way it works enables you to do that. When you're vacuum sealing, you're putting this protective shield around that food. So even if they happen to come in contact, they're not literally touching each other. So that safety is heightened along with all the other benefits. And what that does for you in catering, not only can you cook those products, in essence, probably in the same tank, that you don't have to, but you could. I think it becomes more relevant, and that's kind of the topic I think we'll center on today, is the hold factor. Everyone, I think, is now educated in cooking sous vide, but the hold and serving is a whole separate part of catering, because in a large format catering, you're going back to your cook chill model. You have to, when you're feeding hundreds of people, you have to cook in that way. And what sous vide enables you to do is those things we talked about before, cooking impeccably well with an amazing texture, but that look. Rarely before, unless you were like a skilled master, could you cook 300 filet mignons at mid-rare, chill them, then mark them for the next day and serve them and still be mid-rare. It would be more like that third well done, third mid-rare, third well done. And although technically mid-rare, is that as beautiful as an end-to-end mid-rare filet that was cooked sous vide? No way. And that's, I think, and we'll just use meat as an example for that. You get that visual, but you also get that texture. When you were cooking in other methods, let's use a convection oven, a grill, saute pan, what have you, you're cooking at a temperature of 350 plus. A grill is going to be, 500. And when you're cooking that method, what happens? We'll use a grill or broiler example. The moisture is evaporating this way and dripping this way, but it's not staying in contact with that food you're going to serve. With sous vide, it's staying in contact pretty much right until you plate it. And what is that doing? It's marinating its own juices. And that is ideal because while you're cooking, you're not losing anything. And that's the whole goal here. Can you make a mass amount of food in the proper time frame to serve it at another time and another place? Sous vide becomes that cooking method, that transport method, and the preservation method, all within one movement, minimizing your labor, minimizing randomness of cooking, holding, and mishandling. The less you handle it physically, you can handle that bag all day, but it stays in the bag safely, almost like a nice protective sack around the food, all the while staying moist, staying marinated. It just really is ideal for all aspects of catering, where we usually struggled, to win in that factor. And this one method hits all the boxes that you need to check when you're worried about the end result of food for catering. So it's kind of almost meant for it, I would say.
Yeah, it certainly sounds that way. Neal, have you noticed an increased demand for sous vide cooking equipment, and or have you, how has your knowledge and understanding of the method in which your clients are using your equipment, how's that changed over the years?
Well, we've been seeing a broader demand over the last couple of years. The food waste issues that this eliminates, Buddy mentioned, and Buddy, it's hard to follow you, man. That was outstanding. The food waste issues, the being able to retherm or to then quick chill in that methodology has been just dynamic in the change of this, because there's such great technology on the chilling to go along with the retherm. It allows these operations to limit their waste. In the last couple of years, we've been dealing with so many labor issues and supply issues and all of these things, to now not have to worry about your food costs because they're being controlled with a zero waste methodology has been great. So we've been hearing from a lot of different customers that are looking to move to this method so that they can at least control one factor that they've been fighting and struggling with over time.
Yeah, so to dig in a little more on that question, specifically when you talk about food waste, can you explain to those who may not have used this method for retherming, like how does the use of sous vide really impact food waste specifically, when you're looking at events or looking at prepping in large quantities?
So there's sort of two places that this works. One is end of event, right? You've gone through and you didn't know if there were going to be 300 people at the event or if there were going to be 500 people. Let's say that they scheduled for 300 and 225 people show up, and they've prepped all of the canapes and all the steaks and all the different things that we're going to use throughout the meal. And at the end, you didn't have nearly as much. Well, because this has been held at a consistent temperature, we're not being held, you can then take this and ice bath it down or blast chill it back down and put it back in for storage for the next event or for something else. So you can actually take your food waste to zero in these events. We work with a restaurant, our corporate chef in Spain, who teaches sous vide at the Basque Institute, basically has taken a restaurant and he's done his whole restaurant in the sous vide methodology and has zero food waste at the restaurant at the end of the day, because he cooks en minute when he needs to, which can be done at a catering event, while at the same time he can be having things spread out and ready to go that can be then blast chilled if needed at the end of the day.
Okay. So do you find that the chilling process is just as important as the retherming process in terms of the product quality and integrity?
I'll let Buddy speak to that. I think it is very, very important. But again, there's different methodologies of doing that. We don't, here in the States, represent a blast chilling line. So an ice bath is critical. Getting it through the danger zone back to the right storage temperature is very, very important. But there are many different methodologies of doing that is beyond just a mechanical or machine operation. So I'll throw that to Buddy and let him sort of pick up on that.
Great.
So we're talking about chilling the food?
Yeah. Just to sort of recap, your thoughts on, as we just discussed, really the rethermalization process. So we're holding, product that's warm in a sous vide circulator at a very precise temperature. And then at the end of the night, if there were portions that weren't used, in order to really utilize, and take advantage of that zero waste environment, how important is that chilling, and what methods have you seen people use for that sort of re-chilling of the product at the end of an event?
Yeah, just as Neal said, I mean, we'd all love to have, a blast chiller, whether large or small. It's not always a luxury we have and we should have, but to Neal's point, an ice bath always works. I think the also beautiful thing about sous vide is, unlike, a cook chill system that many chefs of us have used in the past, where it's in a 2 or 4 inch hotel pan or half pan, you have that deep product, whether it's vegetables, mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, what have you, that becomes much harder, to chill. We always played that trick of putting it in a sink with ice and running water, where when it's in a sous vide bag, even though you get larger scale ones, it's typically 1 or 1.5 layers. We all know the rule, it shouldn't be more than 4 inches thick. That sous vide packaging enables you not only to chill it faster, but the ice water can come in direct contact with the food without diluting it or ruining it in any way, where there is no other pan out there. There might be one that has an air seal, but other than that one option, this enables you to just have something that's already in your kitchen, a large Cambro, a 6-inch deep hotel pan. You don't need to get special equipment. I think that's the beauty of it. Once you have your sous vide sealer and immersion circulator, the chilling aspect, you probably already have something in your house that can handle that. Even if it's something as simple as a sink that you put the plug in and added ice, there's your option for when you have a larger amount of bags. So it becomes something that you can already do. And the beauty of that is, because it's in direct contact with that thin layer of the vacuum seal bag, it's going to chill faster and within the time you need to by Department of Health standards. So I think it's more advantageous to use sous vide, even if you didn't cook it sous vide. I think if you had leftovers from another aspect, you could utilize sous vide vacuum seal technology to cryo vacuum the leftovers you had, to chill them faster in that same regard. If you had not cooked them vacuum sealed, I think this technology enables you to do that. And again, minimizing the space it takes up. And then you can portion it out for easy reheating, as long as it wasn't over the time you should hold a product. Like, let's say you had some meat out for an hour or two, and you knew, all right, this is gonna be a slow event, as Neal said. I know we can get this within the 4 hours use. Let's chill this. How would you chill that food that fast without a blast chiller and roll it in there? Your option would be kind of limited. You couldn't just throw in a bag, it wouldn't sink. If you could chill it in a vacuum sealed ability, then you take care of all those things that we said. You can portion out, you can chill it quickly, and then it's ready for a quick reheat using the immersion circulator and sous vide. So again, you get over those hurdles that we used to have with leftovers. So it's not just, I think sous vide and vacuum sealing isn't just about cooking, it's also about preserving and reheating, and ease of portioning out, which is all of our troubles. We can weigh that out quickly, bag it, seal it. We know this is 1 pound, this is 2 pounds, this is 4 portions. So you can label it as such. You can write right on the bag with a permanent marker, this is a pound of fully cooked, so we know there won't be any loss. And you and I both know that's 4 ounce portions. I've got an event for 20 tomorrow, I need 5 bags. How wonderful is that? Minimizes training, minimizes guesswork. And you, the closing chef, could be like getting ready for lunch tomorrow. Hey, all your food's on trays 1, 2, and 3, portioned out. You're all set. Put them in a tank at this temperature, and we're just reducing the amount of people we need to reproduce, and we're reducing the amount of risk with cooling and reheating. Again, that's music to all of our ears as operators, for waste, for safety, etc. It's a magical experience, honestly, when you look at it from a holistic point of view.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about, utilizing sous vide really as a method for reheating products that were cooked perhaps in another method. So Neal, I guess I'm curious, do you ever have clients or have you worked with operators that have prepared items in a traditional setting and then wanted to retherm using a circulator? And how might you advise them regarding a HACCP plan or any regulatory
Sure.
things that they may encounter? Because I think that's something that people really struggle with, is that HACCP plan and the word sous vide and dealing with the health department. So what's your best advice for people that just want to start to
Sure. On the front end, again, the craziest part about all of this is there's a federal code and then there's every municipality that has their own individual code. So that's what makes it really tricky. And we at SAMIC believe that working with your local health agencies to understand what their codes are is really, really important. We would love to tell you we could help you do HACCP plans, but we have people that we know that we can direct you to. So with that sort of as the caveat to this, so that I'm not, getting out too far over my skis, the good news is that the federal health code, according to all we've heard, read, and understand, if you're vacuum sealing and then rethermalizing in-house, you have 48 hours from the time you vacuum seal to the time that it's consumed to not have to have the world famous HACCP plan. If you start extending beyond that, again, pending your local jurisdiction, but this is federal. So that is really good. And, there are now vacuum sealers that have printers that'll tell you exactly what time you vacuum seal so that you can maximize your 48 hours, which is also something that's very, very important as well. But the health departments all are going to be managing what's going on. We've had some health departments that say never vacuum seal warm. You want to chill first and then vacuum seal. We would recommend that. I just, have a hard, it's not as good for the vacuum sealer itself to be vacuum sealing warm things, but knowing that it's fully pasteurized after it's been sous vide the proper amount of time, it allows you to be a lot more judicious in how you're storing and how you're then sealing and then retherming coming down the pathway.
Yeah, that's really incredible information. I had not heard that 48-hour rule before. So you just taught me something that
Confirm it. I mean, but verify. That is what we have heard though. So
yeah, that's incredible. Buddy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, and Neal's spot on with the hurdle. Like we started our first sous vide restaurant in DC, Banh Mi under the sous vide kitchen label. We had to come over those hurdles because the Department of Health there had never administered this before we had to govern it. And I think what scared a lot of people initially was that they saw chefs using this as a way to cook things way under temp, like 131, 132, which we now know is pasteurization levels if done the proper amount of time for the thickness. But when we introduced it, we're like, don't worry, I'm not playing with any of that. If chicken should be 165, we would set the immersion circulator at 165. We weren't trying to get away with this undercooking thing for visual. It was more about ease of use in a limited space. And what made that amazing was back to the initial things we said, we could cook chicken at 165, perfectly done temp. That municipalities, health department regulations, which a lot of them are the same, right? For raw chicken, you got to get to 165. But the beauty of that was we knew it was going to get to 165 perfectly because we set it at that. It wasn't going to be under, but more importantly, it wasn't going to be over. So the only thing you have to worry about then, you're not overcooking it. You're just really, if you cooked it too long, it might turn to mush. You just get too tender, which can be a thing depending on your goal for the product. But that's what the power of sous vide brought you, was exacting temperatures. And if it ever strayed, depending on the models you use, as Neal said, these devices now have HACCP tracking where, what if the power goes out overnight? It'll tell you. What if it ever strayed from temperature? There's a digital readout where it'll let you know that happened. So now you have a secured information, which, an oven would never let you know. If you were slow cooking overnight any other way, it wouldn't be as consistent. And you didn't even really have that option. It was almost like cross your fingers and hope it did well. And I mean that from both sides. Undercook is terrible for health and safety, but overcook is terrible for the customer experience and the joy of what that product could be. And, cooking this way enables you to hit both factors. So if I think you're not trying to play with this, very limit on the low end of cooking, you can really get over those hurdles of the health department saying, we want to hit exactly, if the beef's supposed to be 155 or ground pork's 160, we're going to cook it to that temp every single time and prove it to you. And that's what makes the HACCP plan easier. You're not trying to really change the game. You're trying to follow the rules to the exact number.
Okay, that's great. Neal, I'm curious what type of advice you can provide to the users of your equipment in terms of the amount of product that you would recommend being utilized, you know, per each circulator, and really the amount of time to retherm from, you know, let's say a refrigerated state. What type of advice do you have on that?
So the fact is you never want to oversaturate your tank. If you know, depending upon the size of the product that you're doing and how much you're looking to do, you know, my organization manufactures sous vide circulator, you know, thermal circulators that'll go up to 14 gallons, which will give you, you know, twice as much as your standard hotel pan, right? It's a double gastronome. Would we say fill it up? No, we would probably look at an area, because remember, you want circulation of the water. It's all hydrodynamics. If the water can't move, it's not going to stay. It's not going to stay consistent throughout the tank. So you want to have space in your tank that the water can circulate around it. That's why they call them circulators. If you have too much, it won't. If you don't have enough, well, it's going to go more quickly, right? So the fact is that once the water has achieved the level, you know, recovered back from when you put in your product. I mean, I was working with a hospital group, and we were putting in, we put in basically about 8 10-pound bags of product, or 8 6-pound bags of product. So we're getting 48 pounds of product, and that filled that tank quite a bit. And then you have to be careful that when it comes out, you don't lower the water level, so the circulators will turn off, of course. But you can maximize it, but you just have to make sure that you have flow. And it all depends on if you're doing the 4-ounce steak or the, you know, the 8-ounce chub, or if you're doing ribs in there. So it's there's not one easy answer that fits all users, but it's really a pretty, you know, make sure that there's enough water to keep it warm and covering everything, but enough water that there's still area to flow.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and just in terms of knowing the various options that are out there for the capacity of the tanks that you're able to use with the equipment that's available.
To be fair, I mentioned 40-gallon tanks, but for those big operators, big caterers, people that are looking to have, you know, a much broader experience of putting more product in, Samek's actually now innovated and has created a 30-gallon tank. So it's like a 2 gastronome, but about 25 inches deep. That'll hold, you know, 140, 160 portions. That's heated, that's works as a sous vide, not just as a pasta cooker. It works as a sous vide with controlled temperature that our circulator controls a heater within the tank. So that's got huge application at catering, at quick serve, even food trucks, where they're doing a lot of product. We just have to make sure that we can keep the water from moving outside that tank while it's moving.
That's great. Well, I certainly have learned a lot here today. I think it was a great discussion. And in closing, Buddy, do you have any thoughts to close on in terms of things that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think everything we started with, you know, the takeaway from this for people that have not utilized sous vide cooking, it's not just a method to get a mid-rare steak. I think there's a lot of options when you have these two tools, such as a Samek vacuum sealer, a commercial vacuum sealer, and their advancements in tanks. You know, I think everyone has seen the immersion circulator stick that you could have at home, but when you're talking a commercial aspect in catering and food trucks especially, we've utilized this in 2 food trucks we had, and the beauty of that was you don't know the ebbs and flows. Yeah, there's lunch, yeah, there's dinner, but the game could have got out, a bus could have showed up. And I think one of the best tools is having it at the ready, as Neal said. If you got a back table at your food truck with an extension cord and generator, and I've got 3 to 5 tanks and a flipped picnic table in the back, I've just made myself a little bit of a commissary hold in the back, and I don't have to worry about, am I going to be ready for the rush? And that the beauty of that is, we all know if you run a food truck, that's sales. If a customer comes up and you're out for even 5 minutes, well, they're just going to go to the next food truck. There's rarely a place where there's one food truck, and you want to be so prepared for that moment, because if you're not, you lost that customer. And I think, utilizing this technology gives you that life preserver of your product. And again, if it was a slow day or the rush didn't come, you can plunge it in a bucket of ice and have it used for the next day. That's power in business. You're at the ready, but you're not wasteful. And waste isn't just bad for the environment, it's bad for your bottom line. And that's what we're all in business to make money here. So I think it's something worthwhile to seek out. Look at the advantages of it. Look at the other uses. It's not just for making mid-rare fillets. You could have your cauliflower puree. You could have your mac and cheese you work so hard to make. And after you're done, chilled it, put in a vacuum seal bag, vacuum seal that. And then you're at your events, whether it's catering or food trucks, at the ready in a hot tank. I don't think people think about it like that. They're always thinking about making perfectly textured meats. And it can go way beyond that, utilizing Samek's products to just achieve your readiness at a safe level, at a perfect texture. That's all the boxes we want to check at any food event we're trying to feed people at.
Yeah, that's great. Neal, how about you? And anything in closure that you would share with people that are interested in learning more about Samek or the products? Or
Well, we are consistently trying to push this this technology. At the end of the day, when I started selling sous vides 10 years ago here with Samek, we were all talking about how we could control water and understand what's going on inside. And man, that was the table stakes. And Samek is moving this whole, I think, moving the industry forward in the way that we can monitor what's going on inside that water bath and report it for your HACCP, for your health inspectors. You can print it right from your device. We have a new technology that's a digital kitchen component of this that's got RFID tags that are able to be controlling each individual bag within the water. And we'll be talking about that more. The Janby group will be talking about that more at one of the other roundtables here today, where there's some real advancements in food safety, food quality, and making sure, as Buddy said, we're driving that value to the bottom line of the operator, which is really what we're all after.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I really want to thank you both for spending time with us today and talking about this topic and, the endless uses and advantages of sous vide cooking, from reducing waste to improving quality, increasing sales. I think that everyone here really knows the advantages of sous vide cooking, and we are out to really share that message with the world. So I hope that everyone enjoyed the conversation today, and we're all absolutely available if you'd like to reach out for additional questions or follow up. I know that Mike and Jason will share all of our contact information. So we look forward to chatting with all of you again. Thank you.
Always get a kick out of listening to all the different things that they were doing. There's so much experience across so many different types of restaurants and catering and different concepts. It's great to hear their insights into how you can use sous vide to streamline a lot of your operations. If you had a good time listening to that, please let them know in the comments, share a little bit of your love. And I thought it was really important what Buddy said. It's something that we don't think about a lot, because we do, especially as home cooks, which is where a lot of us got our first experience with sous vide. We think about it as just like making it easier to cook meats. But I've got this from Chef Petranczyk a lot, and Buddy's talked about it a lot, that you can use it as part of your entire food prep process, even if you're not using the precision temperatures of sous vide to do it. So whether it's holding foods, whether it's retherming, chilling and retherming, there's a lot of different uses that you can work sous vide in. That's more than just, making a beef tenderloin, like Buddy said. So it's good stuff to explore and see how you can get the most out of a lot of these technologies, because once you spend the money on the machine, you might as well get the most out of it and use it to its full extent.